What happened to Marina Ramos? How did she end up dead in Mojave County? And where are her two little girls? It's a cold case that decades later, investigators learned was also a possible missing persons case. This is Arizona Crime Uncovered. I'm Ashley Holden. This story is one that we've been following for years. The Mojave County Sheriff's Office taking us out to the desert where Marina was found, giving us a behind-the-scenes look at their search for answers. Recently, I sat down with the investigator who first discovered that the girls were missing. She details the new developments and evidence in the case as she believes she could one day find Marina's daughters. How long have you been working on this case?
It's going on 4 years since the time that we first got the case to the time that we submitted her fingerprints to getting her identity.
But giving up isn't an option for investigator Lori Miller. When this all started, when you just looked at the case of Marina Ramos, what was your initial thought?
As you know, we brought you out there to the area where she was left, the way in which she was killed and how she appeared. You know, no human being deserves any of that. And so it just makes you a little bit more determined to try to get her some justice.
In 2023, Miller taking ABC15 to the spot Marina was found over 30 years ago in 1989. The 28-year-old stabbed and left in the middle of the desert.
They surmise it was two suspects, one between 5'10" and 6'2". The other one was between 5'4" and 5'8".
Marina ultimately found by tourists on their way to the Grand Canyon. Can you show us that time again?
Yeah, she was right about in here. Like I said, her head was this way and her feet were this way. What I don't understand is why she was killed here.
Marina found off Highway 93 about 50 miles from Las Vegas. Decades ago, investigators depended on footprints, stride length, and the little evidence found at the scene.
The great mystery. Once again, daunting responsibility.
That responsibility still weighs on Miller. When we first visited Kingman to cover this case, she and Sergeant John Cole walked us through the process of discovering who Marina was.
It was exciting because you review a case, then you look at all the evidence and you see what you can resubmit to see what can be analyzed.
These cases, you know, we don't have a lot to go on a lot of these cases until we identify the person. You know, that's the main important thing, because after we identify who it is, we can kind of follow up on leads and follow up on family. Maybe they had a direction to go.
Since 1989, she has had no name. Her fingerprints had been attempted. There were items at the scene that were put through to try to identify her via fingerprints, and it was all to no avail. Yeah. So then I get this contact from the NamUs coordinator, and he says, try again, because the FBI is coming up with new techniques, a way of, you know, running it through their database and finding out who she was. So I submitted those fingerprints, and then next day they had a name, which did not turn out to be her real name.
Buried in Mojave County, a Jane Doe, until February 2022, when Marina's fingerprints matched back to a shoplifting case out of Bakersfield, California, but under a different name.
So that really began the adventure, because it was a real adventure to figure out who she really was.
Finally, a cousin started connecting the dots.
I said, do you know a Maria Ortiz? And she said, no, but I have a cousin who hasn't been seen since 1989.
DNA from family was used to confirm the body was Marina's.
From there, when we did tell the family that it was her, and they asked at that time another question which totally blew us away, was, where are her two little girls? And it's like, two little girls? We never knew of two little girls. And that began another investigation in and of itself, because come to find out, there was a 2-month-old and a 14-month-old that no one in her family has seen since September of 1989.
After decades in law enforcement, this case is still one of a kind for Miller. I mean, have you ever had a case that has this many kind of twists that were unexpected, like the missing girls?
No, this came as a total surprise. You know, and it's one thing, obviously, working cold cases that, okay, I have this 1989 case, and she was a Jane Doe. Now I've identified her, but it's been so many years. How am I supposed to find viable evidence and find viable witnesses or suspects? And then on top of that, now I have to find missing little girls. I mean, how many people have that thrown into the mix for them to figure out at the same time? It's difficult enough to do a cold case homicide investigation. Now you're doing a missing persons, hopefully missing persons investigation on top of that.
In 2023, they thought they finally found the key to the first puzzle piece, a man named Fernando.
Fernando in the black SUV.
Just can't trust people, you know.
I mean, it was isolated out there as it is, but this was, decades ago. So how hard is it to try and track down that evidence, track down witnesses and things like that?
Even by today's standards, it's considered desolate. It's just a dirt road over near a windmill farm and a mobile home community. There was no, at the major intersection, there was no convenience store at the time that would have had cameras. There, in fact, the women who found her had to drive all the way into Kingman to contact anybody because there were no cell phones. I mean, there were no techniques for collecting evidence that there is now.
Family believed Marina had been last seen with the man named Fernando, possibly heading to Ontario with her 2 little girls, Elizabeth and Jasmine, who were just babies back in 1989.
I doubt that she has been gone for 30-some years, It's crazy. It's something that I don't know, you can't find a word for it. It's like, how, Why?
ABC15 spoke with Marina's sister, Margarita Maldonado, not long after she learned about her sister's murder. Margarita says they had searched for Marina around the Bakersfield area, where her family lived off and on, but now their focus has shifted to finding the 2 girls.
We just want to find out what happened to the girls,
Yeah.
We want to know where they're at. We want to look for them. They're not by themselves. They have family. I would like to meet them, at least it's part of my sister. I would like to, even if they don't want to be around us because they don't know us, but at least if I stand far away and see them, I can see my sister, It's sad. Yeah. It hurts.
But Margarita says her sister had a tendency to want independence and was overly trusting.
Think that she was just friendly to maybe the wrong people?
Yes, that's one of the things I told her. I said, be careful who you hang around with. You can't trust everybody.
Oh, she obviously trusted the wrong people. Yes, she, I guess talking to her brothers and her sisters and her cousin, there was a little bit of wanderlust in her, a little bit of adventure. But at the same time, she lived in this small farming community, and she wasn't exposed to the big world and what was lurking in there. And so I think that's what happened. She just came across some people who provided information or had a demeanor that she felt that she was safe, and turned out that she wasn't safe.
You were trying to find, we've heard about Fernando in the black SUV. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned about that Fernando?
Well, actually, we went to the Bakersfield, Lamont area in September and actually spent some time there and talked to other family members and actually located the biological father of the youngest girl, Jasmine. And we were able to interview him, and to his knowledge, he had never had any contact with her after September of 1989. He had gone to Mexico. His mother had died. He's from Mexico. And when he returned, Marina was waiting for him with the two little girls, and that there were two other gentlemen there. She told him that she was going to go to Puerto Rico because there had been a disaster there, and that she was leaving with the two little girls. And he described one of the guys as male Hispanic, brown hair, clean shaven, about 6 foot tall, muscular, as if he had just gotten out of prison. And the other gentleman he couldn't describe because he remained in the car that they all got into what he believed was a red car, and they took off, and he never saw her again. We were able to get his DNA, which we have been able to put into the database. So now if the youngest girl, if her DNA shows up for any reason anywhere, that we have his DNA also, and that based on our interview, we were able to investigate further, and as of now, he has been excluded as a possible suspect in this case.
As for the sketch of Fernando and where Marina was before Mojave County,
I think he's a friend. In fact, we showed that sketch to Jasmine's biological father, and he had never seen him before. So I think that he was a friend who was helping out in some way and just taking her to wherever she wanted to go. And that's, kind of what we're still leaning towards, California, somewhere in Los Angeles or San Bernardino County, because that's where all the leads have taken us so far.
Miller, following each lead, DNA and new testing available has given Miller one more piece to the puzzle.
I don't think that any of these techniques existed back then that are available now.
So when we think about this case and how she ended up here in Arizona, that's really a mystery still.
It remains a mystery how the only thing that I can think of is that it wouldn't be uncommon to want to go to Las Vegas, to that area. And we are the highway from Las Vegas to Phoenix. So somewhere along the way, leaving Las Vegas and heading to Phoenix is something took place that caused somebody to be so angry and frustrated that they not only killed her, but killed her in such a horrendous way.
But Miller has been able to use new technology to piece together a DNA profile. Can you talk me through what you were able to get and the testing that had to be done to get that?
We do now have DNA of a male contributor, unidentified, on her body that we know had to be tied to her murder. It's running through the database, but it hasn't come up with a tie to anyone yet. But if we can get DNA from anyone who's a possible suspect, now we have something to compare.
I feel like every time I talk to you, there's different areas in different parts of the country where someone could have seen her, talked to her, befriended her, something like that. In terms of LA, it sounds like you think that at some point she was there before her death.
Yes, I think she was housed somewhere with two little girls. Like I said, she had to be living at somebody's residence or staying in an apartment building that, and we've checked for both in San Bernardino County and Los Angeles County. Any little girls who were dropped off, abandoned, left, and no records exist at all of two little girls being picked up around that time period. But at the same time, a woman with two little girls, one's just a newborn. It has to stick out to somebody. And again, I firmly believe that she left those children in the care of somebody else and went off to do whatever she needed to do. And she met her demise and the girls are still alive somewhere.
Miller encourages anyone who thinks they may have information to call. And if anyone believes they may be Marina's daughter, they can visit GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. Those sites have DNA from Marina's family and are monitored by the sheriff's office. But if there's someone out there, Bakersfield, LA, Arizona, Nevada even, that had spotted her or thinks that they had seen her, so many years ago, they should call you, because their little missing detail could be the piece of the puzzle that you need.
Exactly. No piece of information is too small for me to follow up on. Because if you think about it, we're working with DNA right now, but it's just microscopic and what it can lead to. So if somebody could just point out anything, any direction, it will take us in, because we've exhausted everything so far. I'm still waiting, because the girls were so young. We don't have any pictures of Jasmine, and we only have one picture of Elizabeth. And I had been working with Nick to try to do an age progression, but they don't have anything to really work with. So I don't have anything that I can even put out there to you, nor does the family, because they didn't have any contact with her. So yeah, anything, people, contact your local, if you don't contact the Mojave County Sheriff's Office, contact your local police department or sheriff's office and have them forward the information to me. I'm not opposed to any piece of information.
Miller holding out hope that one day this case will end with a reunion. What would it mean to make that phone call to Marina's family to say, we found the girls or we found the person who did this?
I go over that often, and I don't know if I would even make a phone call. I think I might drive all the way to Bakersfield and knock on the door. It's just, obviously, if that ever happened, I would start with a phone call, but there will be a meeting sometime, someplace, I pray, where we all meet together.
Miller is looking into additional tests that could be run, including pollen tests that could help lead her to where Marina was before she was killed. If you have any tips or information on this case, you're asked to call the Mojave County Sheriff's Office. We will cover any breaks here on Arizona Crime Uncovered. Thank you for watching Arizona Crime Uncovered. We're working to bring awareness to crimes where victims are still awaiting justice and also provide an in-depth look at cases still unfolding. Each episode breaks down a timeline of the case, where it stands now, and if any help is needed from the community. You can watch on ABC15.com, the ABC15 mobile app, Roku, YouTube, or any of your other streaming platforms.